When faced with an uncertain decision, plot a course. The course is a decision quality framework. And decision quality helps us to focus not only on what we decide, but how we decide. It helps to take the focus away from outcomes of a decision that can be reliant on luck and get the focus on making a high quality decision. So part of the theory of decision quality is that you can make a good decision and have bad luck and a bad outcome. You can make a bad decision and have good luck and still have a great outcome. So the focus of it is to make good decisions as often as possible. And the more and more you develop the ability to make good decisions over time, the more and more you're likely to have good outcomes over time as well. So there's real value in improving decision quality across your organisation. What you'll notice here is that risk is step 4 in a framework, and it's set in the context of other elements of the decision that come first, and then risk is applied to those elements. So it doesn't start with risk. It's not about managing risks, thinking about what risk do I want to take. It's about what options do I want to consider and what are the risks of those options, and overall, what choice shall I make? The first step in this framework is context. So this is about the background. How do we get to where we are today? What's the purpose of the decision? What's the goal? There's also a few parameters that we'll look at here, and they'll help us to decide how much effort, how much time we're going to put into going through the rest of this process. How much analysis will we do for a particular decision? How much can we make the decision based on gut? How much should we spend in terms of rigor and analysis for the decision? So those are, is it a high consequence decision? If the decision is low consequence, you might just want to go ahead because it's not so important that you'd spend a lot of time analysing it. But if it's a high consequence decision, then clearly you want to make the most informed decision that you can and take as much time as you can in order to make that decision. But time is a second factor. How quickly do you need to make the decision? If you need to make the decision really soon, how clear can you get by going through this process in a short amount of time? And is the decision reversible? James Clear puts this in a really memorable way. Is it a hat? A hat you can put on and take off straight away if you don't like it. Is it a haircut? If you have a haircut and you don't like it, it'll grow out in a couple of months. Or is it a tattoo? If you have a tattoo, you've pretty much got it for life and there's not much you can do about it. So you're going to think a lot more about having a tattoo, unless you're drunk on a night out or something, than you are about buying and putting on a hat. And the same applies to decisions. If you can make a decision, begin to execute, realise that there's something going wrong and go back to where you are now, then that's probably fine. You should take the decision and steer as you go. But if you take the decision and you go off a cliff edge and you can never come back to where you are now, then you want to make sure that you've made the most rigorous decision that you can. So that's context. Next element is options. What options are available to meet the goals of the decision? Things to consider here. Are you considering enough options? Quite often it will be one option, either do or don't do. That's not generally ideal. Are you considering too many options? So many options that you couldn't possibly do a rigorous analysis and compare the outcome of those options, in which case you might want to find a way to reduce them down to a manageable number of real candidates that you're going to make your decision between. And are there any options that you haven't considered? Have you been creative with identifying all the potential options? Can you combine options in an and/or fashion to find one that's more suitable and meets more of the requirements of the decision? Can you find enough information to evaluate each option that's a real candidate? These are all factors to consider in this options phase, as well as what all the options are and whether there's enough or too many. During this phase, you'll begin to look at the assumptions associated with those options. So how much will they cost? How much benefit will be delivered by each option? How long will they take to implement? How difficult are they to implement? All of those sorts of factors, so that you can begin to make a comparison between the deterministic elements of the options at this point. In utility and human factors, begin to consider stakeholder preferences. Invite challenge on the options and get feedback, but also consider potential biases that could impact on your ability to make a balanced decision and bring those into your awareness. This is to some extent a discussion part of the process. It's not one step. There'll be back and forth, there'll be feedback, there'll be development of the options, there'll be development of the assumptions in those options as well. And this is where it becomes really interesting. So you develop some options, and in this risk element of the course framework, you'll begin to analyse the risks, each option, on a comparable basis. Now, ideally, if the decision is important and consequential enough, you'd want to quantify and model risk so that you compare the range of outcomes for each option. And comparing that range with risk adjustment will be better than comparing deterministic estimates. Perhaps option A. It looks attractive in terms of estimated deterministic cost. But there's some risks in option A that you can't control, and that means that it's got a long tail and really could blow up. Option B might look comparatively expensive when you look at it deterministically, but the risk's fairly low and you can deliver it within quite a narrow range of options and be confident about that. And perhaps that one will become more attractive on that basis. This often comes into play when deciding between new and innovative players in the market and big established companies. Which one do you go for? What are the benefits of each? What are the risks of each? What are the ranges of outcomes? This is a really interesting part of evaluating the decisions, particularly as someone who cares about risk. Okay, at this point you've developed options that fit the context of the decision. You've considered divergent views. You've considered the variability in those options due to risk. You're now well placed to make a decision and to decide and deliver and execute with confidence. The act of going through the framework also creates a narrative for stakeholders, a narrative for assurers, something which you can learn lessons from and get better in the future. And of course, it's not as simple as that. Decision quality is a practice, so it won't be perfect. It's a framework which you can use. And over time, organisations and individuals, if you treat it as a practice, can get better and better at making decisions.